What's up everybody? I hope everybody is doing well. I am sitting here bringing you guys another installment of our arrow testing series. Now before we get started here, I just want to reemphasize that this is a series, so if you have not been following along, make sure you're clicking up here, I think it'll be right here, and checking out the other videos in the series. It will be very helpful in the continuation of all of this information. Another thing, please make sure you are liking and commenting on these videos. These videos took a lot of work to make, along with all of our other videos, but liking and commenting is the best way for you to show your support for us. Today's video is hopefully going to answer the question of if you are pulling enough draw weight. For those of you who have not been following along this arrow series, I wanted to just talk real quick about how I got a lot of this data. First, I grabbed myself a chronograph, I shot a whole bunch of arrow combinations over that chronograph, and I graphed all of those velocities over the arrow weight, which gave me this graph here. And my bow was set at 70 3/4 pounds. Then with that information, I was able to take that and convert that into the number of grains per pound of draw weight, which gave me this graph. And also with all that data, I was able to take it and plug it into Archer's Advantage and gain a whole bunch of knowledge about the arrow flight, arrow trajectory, sight settings, and all of that information that you can get from Archer's Advantage. I'm going to lead into this discussion by talking about your arrow weight versus velocity by draw weight. So this graph right here shows draw weights of 50 up to 80 pounds in 5-pound increments. And that's what each of those lines is a different draw weight. So for each of these draw weights, I took arrow combinations from 350 on up to 980 grains and graphed the velocity values of them, which I gained from my grain per pound graph that I showed you earlier. As you can see in this graph, which is similar to everything else that we've seen, is that as you go from 350 on up to 980, these lines actually get closer once you reach 980 grains. And that just means that these bows are more efficient as your arrow weight is heavier. So with this graph, I was able to make this table. And what this table shows is it just breaks down the information in the graph, hopefully a little bit clearer. From 350 to 465, which I'm using 465 as my current arrow weight, from 350 to 465, you're seeing about 2 feet per second per pound of draw increase. And then up at 980 grains, you're seeing about 1.5 feet per second per pound of draw increase. And then for all of these, you're seeing a 3 to 4.5% increase per 5-pound increment. Now I know right now this information doesn't mean a whole lot, but stick with me, we're hopefully going to break this down into chewable pieces for everyone. With this velocity information, I was able to get this momentum graph. Now this is the arrow weight versus momentum, and you can see that on the left side of this graph, the lines are closer together, and that on the right side of this graph, the lines are further apart. And this led me to this table, which is extremely similar to the velocity table because all momentum is mass times velocity. So it's going to track it linearly. All your percentages are pretty much the exact same. Obviously your momentum numbers are different. So with this, you're still seeing 3 to 4.5% momentum increase per 5 pounds of draw weight increase. Now, this table is where I think you really start learning something about this information. These are the total arrow drop charts for 350 grains, 465 grains, and 980 grains. And these are separated at 70 pounds and 80 pounds, at 20 yards, 60 yards, and 100 yards. Now it's the similar format to all the other tables, but this one I do think you start to learn some stuff. So what you can see going vertically down this table is that a 350 grain arrow versus a 980 grain arrow. A 980 grain arrow obviously has more drop. Then what you can see going from 70 pounds to 80 pounds in each of those arrow weights, the 80-pound arrow has less drop, which this is pretty obvious. This is something we all knew, but I think this is a good foundation to start. So the next thing I want to look at is I want to specifically look at the 465 grain arrow. Now this is what I'm using for my arrow weight, so this is applicable to me. I don't know how applicable it'll be to you, but it'll be somewhat close. Looking at this table, you can see that there's 1 inch total of arrow drop difference going from 70 to 80 pounds at 20 yards. There's 8.8 inches at 60 and 25.4 inches at 100, which is roughly 2 feet, obviously just a touch more, but roughly 2 feet. Then if you look at all the other arrow weights, you're still seeing 1 to 2 inches of difference between 70 and 80 pounds at 20 yards. But when you stretch it out to 100 yards, you're seeing 20 to 50 inches of difference between these arrow combinations in total arrow drop. Then you also take this information and you look at our time of flight table. Now this I'm going to talk about real quick because the meaning is kind of hard to see and it's actually leading into something later in the video. So with a 350 grain arrow between 70 and 80 pounds, you're actually only seeing 11 hundredths of a second of difference at 20 yards in total time of flight. Then if you look at the 980 grain arrow out at 100 yards, you're only seeing 95 hundredths of a second difference of time of flight between 70 and 80 pounds. With the time of flight data, we're able to do some more calculations. So if you want to know how I did these calculations, check out this video. I talk about it in that video, and we're going to start calculating inches of deer drop. So to start with, let's look at the 350 grain arrow going from 70 to 80 pounds. Now when you go from 70 to 80 pounds with a 350 grain arrow, at 20 yards, you're actually only seeing 1.1 inches difference of deer drop. And then looking at the 980 grain arrow at 100 yards, then looking at the 980 grain arrow at 100 yards, between 70 and 80 pounds, you're seeing 9.5 inches difference of deer drop. Now with the deer drop information, the total arrow drop information, we can take those, add them together, and receive our total arrow impact difference on a deer. And that's what this table is. So once again, looking at the 350 grain arrow at 20 yards, you can see that there's a difference of 1.8 inches of total arrow impact difference between 70 and 80 pounds. And looking at the 980 grain arrow at 100 yards, you can see that there's 59 inches total of arrow impact difference between 70 and 80 pounds. With all of this information, we can kind of start to try to hone in on a conclusion as to how much draw weight we should be shooting. In order to do this, I'm going to keep looking at my arrow impact on a deer table. So looking at my arrow specifically, 465 grains, at 20 yards, between 70 and 80 pounds, I am seeing 2.3 inches of difference between 70 and 80 pounds. And then on out, you can see that there's 12.7 inches of difference at 60 and 32.1 inches at 100 yards. So in order to form any kind of conclusion with this information, you have to break it down. You have to break it down into where you are hunting, the time of year, and the max shot distance that you could be seeing where you are hunting. Let's say I am picking a draw weight arrow combination for a November whitetail hunt. Now on this hunt, my max yardage is probably going to be about 40 yards because I'll be in the trees, everything will be moving quickly, and 40 yards is probably the max distance I would be able to shoot at in this scenario. So in order to look at 40 yards, we're gonna have to do a little bit of math. We're gonna have to take the average of the 20 and the 60 yard information. Now this is going to get us close, not exact, but very, very close. So first we'll start by taking the average of 2.3 and 12.75. Now that's the arrow impact difference between 20 and 60 between 70 and 80 pounds. And with this we get an average of 7.5 inches. And with this we get an arrow impact difference of 7.5 inches between 70 and 80 pounds at 40 yards. But then you break it down more and you realistically start to think, do you actually want to draw 80 pounds in the middle of November? Generally no. After sitting in a tree all day, and it being a little chilly, 32 down, geez, I think we could be in the single digits in November sometimes here in Nebraska too. So I would say no. 80 pounds seems like a stretch in a whitetail stand in November. So we can break this down a little bit more. Take that 7.5 inches, divide it by 2, and we get our information for 75 pounds. So at 75 pounds at 40 yards, we would see a total arrow impact difference of 3.75 inches. And then by averaging the 70 and 80 pound arrow impact numbers at 20 yards, we can see that between 70 and 75 pounds, you're only seeing 2 inches of total arrow impact difference at 20 yards. And with that velocity at 75 pounds, you're only seeing a 3% increase in momentum between 75 and 70 pounds. Now looking at this information, 3.75 inches at 40, 2 inches at 20, and 3% increase in momentum just to say I'm drawing 75 pounds in the middle of November, I'm not sure that's worth it. Like I've said in these other videos, I am going to have to explore what 3% difference in momentum actually looks like. But right now, I am pretty confident in my 70 pound, 465 grain arrow that it is going to pass through any deer that I hit, as long as I'm not hitting anything odd in the cavity, which you cannot control. But I plan on exploring the momentum further and hopefully solidifying this answer for myself. Now, maybe more draw weight could make more sense if you change your hunt scenario. So if you're looking at like a western mule deer hunt in September where you're looking at warm temperatures, you're going to be walking, things where you're not going to have to call it cold draw 75 to 80 pounds, and then your shots are probably going to be longer. That 12-inch difference at 60 between 70 and 80 pounds and the 32-inch difference at 100 between 70 and 80 pounds could definitely make a difference on that hunt. So really what I'm saying with this, and what I feel like I've kind of stressed throughout this whole series, is there's no one right answer for anyone. You really need to take a look at yourself, what you're comfortable drawing, what you're comfortable shooting, the scenario of your hunt, whether it's cold, warm, walking, sitting, pretty much all of the scenarios, your max shot distance, and you need to take each one of these into consideration and decide what is going to be best for you. That's the beautiful thing with archery, is there's no one right answer. Everybody's going to have different opinions, and everybody is going to have something different that works for them. So I encourage you to break this stuff down, look at your information, and make a decision for yourself, not based on anybody else's input. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really want to make sure that you're following along, because the videos after this I am extremely excited for. It's stuff that I've been extremely curious about for a long time, and I think we're really going to start solidifying some of these answers in these next few videos. So make sure you're following along, make sure you're liking, commenting, giving us feedback, leaving information down below that you want us to hear, and things that you think that we can find with this information and I could make a video on. Another thing is, make sure you're subscribing. We put a lot of effort into these videos, whether that be this arrow series or our hunting videos. It takes a lot of time. Subscribing, liking, commenting are all things you can do to show your support, and we greatly appreciate every single one of you guys and all of the support that we receive from you. So with that being said, make sure you're following along in this series, make sure you're checking out our hunt videos, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.